Oh, hello. My name is Mara, and welcome to Books Like Whoa. I am so excited to be talking to you guys today about a book that I was so excited to read this year, that I was incredibly hyped when I got approved for an arc of it, and that I have been dying to talk to people about since I read it back in July, and it has been released. I think when this is going up, it will have been released the day before, so I can finally talk to you about it, and that is Sapphire Flames by Ilona Andrews. Now, I don't have my copy to show you because I am pre-filming this, and I have not received my physical copy in my greasy little hands, but as soon as I get it, you can bet your sweet macaroons that it's going up on my shelf with all my other Ilona Andrews-ness. And I am so delighted to tell you that this was a book that I was very hyped for, and that this book absolutely lived up to that hype for me. I think that the Hidden Legacy series, just in terms of like tightness, cohesion, quality, is probably the best series that Ilona Andrews has going, and I say that as somebody who absolutely adores Ilona Andrews. If you are not a regular watcher of my channel, you may not know that Ilona Andrews is my favorite currently living / writing author around, so for me to say that I think quality-wise this is the best series going is saying something, but I do think that that is the case, even if I'm not sure if I actually prefer this over Kate Daniels. It's kind of a toss-up for me. I love them both, and this is a continuation of the original Hidden Legacy trilogy. It's kind of like a reboot or like a season 2. We have a new point of view character, so it is Nevada Baylor's younger sister Catalina, who is our kind of point of view character, narrator, etc. And we join the family several years after the events of the original trilogy, where Catalina really kind of has taken over House Baylor. In the spoiler section, we will talk about that a little bit more, but what you can kind of surmise in the first few pages is that Catalina is now the head of House Baylor. She is in charge of their detective agency, and shenanigans ensue in this book because they find themselves with a pretty substantial problem as the sort of protection period for their house as it forms is coming to an end, and they have a case land in their lap that could mean a lot of problems for a lot of people. So what I'm gonna do today is talk to you about my kind of non-spoilery, just sort of general thoughts about both this book and the novella Diamond Fire. I'm gonna go ahead and just throw that in here to the mix because I really think that you need to read that novella before you read this book. I'm gonna do that for a little bit, and then we will transition into some spoilery thoughts that I have, just some squee moments and things that I'm excited to see how they progress, and some comparisons to what I think this book is doing in comparison to the original trilogy and things I'm excited to see happening. So let's dive in. One of the things that I was most nervous about for this book was the fact that we were gonna have a new narrator in a world that we love. Now, we have seen this before from Ilona Andrews. I think notably last year, Iron and Magic had Hugh Dombre and Alara as our point of view characters in Iron and Magic, as opposed to Kate Daniels, so that was still in the Kate Daniels verse, but we had new narrators, point of view characters, and I think that that went really well. So that kind of, to me, I was like, okay, I'm feeling pretty good that Ilona Andrews is going to successfully move me into a different kind of headspace of a narrator for this new reboot of Hidden Legacy. And I will tell you that I think that that was very successful in this book. Catalina is a quite different character than Nevada. I think she is much more sort of deliberative and coming from a place of kind of anxiety or insecurity as the middle child, but also just by virtue of the fact of what her gifts are as opposed to Nevada's. And so I liked that there, to me, did feel like a real difference in terms of how Catalina problem solved things and kind of her outlook on situations she would find herself in. I think it is very important to read the bridging novella before Sapphire Flames, which is Diamond Fire, as I mentioned earlier, because I think what was very smart on their part is that the first little bit of Diamond Fire is still in Nevada's point of view right after Hidden Legacy, you know, trilogy 1 ends. We see her immediately after the events of that trilogy are wrapping up, and we see kind of her looking at Catalina. There's a nice little transition moment there, and then for the rest of that novella, you are in Catalina's point of view, and I think that that was really smart. It kind of introduces Catalina as a point of view character, and what it also does is give you sort of where Catalina was in the first trilogy, sort of where her head's at, which allows you to appreciate appreciate when you get to Sapphire Flames, the growth that she has had in the interim time that we have not been following these characters. You can definitely see that she has grown and is really kind of stepping into her adult self. She is in her early 20s by the time this book is going. So I think that was a really smart choice, and I would really urge anybody who has not read Diamond Fire to go ahead and read that before they read Sapphire Flame. That is definitely a big thing I would recommend doing. And Diamond Fire is also just like a delightful little like speculative fiction mystery novella. It's very charming, very well executed, 4 stars, very much enjoyed it just on a, page to page level. But in terms of the overall series, I definitely do think you should read that. And then in terms of this book, just on its own merits, how I felt about it, I gave this a 4.5 star. I really enjoyed it. If you are not familiar with my rating scale, I give my favorite books of the year 4.5 star. I give a all-time favorite a 5 star. So I wouldn't quite call this like an all-time favorite. It is not like my favorite book of Ilona Andrews that they've ever written, but I really enjoyed this. I think that this is an incredibly effective speculative fiction romance type book, urban fantasy, however you kind of want to categorize this. I think that it does it really well. I love the family dynamics in this. If you loved spending time with the Baylors in the first trilogy, you get plenty more of them. I also love that this is setting up what I think are going to be some very interesting pieces of conflict, and I will talk a little bit more about that in the spoiler section, but just at a high level, I can tell you the kind of political underpinnings of the first trilogy, I think are definitely reopened and are going to be built on for this trilogy. There's definitely some very intriguing possibilities of things that could happen set up in this. I think we learn more about the world and about how some of the politics in this world work. We spend more time with characters like their grandmother, both the one that lives with them, but also their kind of infamous grandmother. We get a little bit more insight from her. We get some more time with characters like Linus. We're also spending time with some of the allies that they made in the first trilogy, but I think that we're also seeing definitely doors where there's going to be new characters being introduced. I definitely think that this book also makes me hungry for there to be just more and more trilogies of every member of this family. I don't know. I mean, I think some of these family members maybe don't merit like a full trilogy, but there are definitely like some side novellas that I'm really rooting for that I hope we get. And this kind of teased me with some character moments that made me really excited about some of those dynamics and some romances that I don't know merit an entire book, but like I would like a novella. So in terms of my non-spoilery thoughts, that's probably about what I can tell you. All that to say, if you've been waiting for this new entry in the Hidden Legacy series, I do not think that you will be disappointed. It is out as we speak right now, so I would really recommend, if you like Ilona Andrews already, this is, gonna just be delivering for you. A question in terms of if you could start here with Ilona Andrews, I think you could. I think that this is like workable as a standalone, but I wouldn't recommend it. Like, why do that to yourself? Because the original trilogy is just excellent, and I would highly recommend, if you want to read this overall Hidden Legacy series, just go ahead and start at the first one. That is Burn for me. I think Wildfire and White Hot are 2 of the best books that Ilona Andrews has ever written, and that is the 2nd and 3rd book in that trilogy. So don't deny yourself the pleasure of just going to the beginning of this series, starting there. If you just can't do that, you could pick up with this one. It's, basically season 2. You could, I just wouldn't recommend it. So those are my non-spoilery thoughts. Let's transition into a few spoilery or like spoiler adjacent things. So, things that I was intrigued by in this book. One, I really liked the move of having Nevada having had a falling out with the rest of the family in terms of her not being able to balance her allegiances to her husband and her family. I think that's a really realistic and interesting conflict to bring up, especially in light of the fact that the romance that we have here is between Alessandro and Catalina, and Alessandro is going to be the head of his house. And I think the whole dynamic between Grandma and Catalina, where she's like, you must forsake him, like you must have somebody who will come into your own house. Like, I just think there's a level of angst that is set up in that I was very intrigued by. I normally wouldn't go for it, but it's Ilona Andrews and they sold me on it. And I mean, like, it's a romance. Clearly at some point, either she's gonna get out of that promise or he'll decide to give everything up for her. But I liked that this is a different romantic conflict than we have really seen, I think, in Ilona Andrews books before, because I think that the Rogan and Nevada dynamic in a lot of ways was pretty similar to the Kate Curran dynamic of like, we're both badasses, we're gonna be badasses together, kind of like you know, hate to love or sort of like playful tussling. This is, I think, a much angstier setup where, yes, there's a lot of bickering and kind of that, you know, push-pull dynamic that I think we really like from an Ilona Andrews book, but it's much more like dude is a straight up jerk to her in some ways, and I think the way that this book ends that piece of their relationship is quite different than what we've seen before from Ilona Andrews, at least from what I've read. I haven't completely finished the Edge series yet, so maybe that happens in those, but from what I've read, this is kind of a different relationship dynamic, and I really liked it. I liked seeing something new. I'm very intrigued by the relationship of Linus and the Baylors. I am like 90% sure the illusion that's happening here is that Linus is going to end up being their granddad. I hope anyway. Like, I think that would be a really fun thing to unfold. I was way into finding out more about the political world with Linus and this whole idea of like people trying to control these different gifts and like the mutations or whatever within gene pools. I thought that was interesting, and I liked, you know, her becoming his deputy, and like I'll be intrigued to see kind of how that piece develops. Yeah, I just think that the chessboard has been successfully set in this book for a lot of interesting conflicts. Like, I think that they laid out a lot of different avenues for things to progress. It would be very interesting to see what Alessandro's deal is, and if like his end game is to come back to Catalina, or if he like, I wasn't totally sure from like his little POV / just generally the vibes I was getting from him, if he thinks that he's never going to be able to be with Catalina, or if it's more of a like, I can't be with you right now, but I'm going to come back and make it up to you later. I'm not sure where his head is at. I know her head's at like, cool, we can never be together. I mean, does she not know she's in a romance series? Of course you're going to be together eventually. That's like the entire point of the book. But like, I really enjoyed that kind of, I don't know. I just like the dynamics in this one, and I'm intrigued. I'm just intrigued in general by a lot of things that got set up. And then I'm also like I'm assuming that the third trilogy will be following the little sister. Is her name Ariana? That sounds right. I assume they'll be following her, and I cannot wait. I really enjoy her, and I think that that will be really fun. I would like to see some side novellas with Mom and Rogan security dude. I think that would be really cute. I would like to see some side novellas with like the cousins, because I'm not sure that they really merit like the full novel, but I would like some side novellas with them. I just really like this world, and I enjoyed spending more time in it, learning more about it. I'm just excited to settle in for some more Hidden Legacy, basically. So yeah, those are my thoughts about Sapphire Flames. I am so thankful that I got the opportunity to read this early. I actually got this directly from the author. They opened it up to plead your case, and my case was pled. So I really appreciate them allowing me to read this early. It put a huge smile on my face in a very difficult week, and it's just Ilona Andrews goodness, and I'm so excited to be able to have a timely review up for you guys. So thank you so much. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this. Definitely let me know if you have read this book, what you thought in the comments below. If you've not yet dipped your toes into the Ilona Andrews pool, you know, feel free to let me know if you're thinking about it. And yeah, I think that will do it. So if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, follow me on the social medias if you are so inclined. I have all of that information listed in the description box below, and I think that that will do it. I hope you're having an absolutely fabulous day, and I will just talk to you soon. Bye.